Good evening and welcome to the July 27th meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Before we start, I would like to say that how happy I think we all are to be back in chambers. Being on Zoom for the last year and a half has not been such a pleasure, but at least we got our business conducted. So anyway, we're here and we're glad to be here. So what I'd like to do is call the meeting to order. First, is there any conflict of interest? I'll take care of that. Okay. I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to have someone make a motion to allow Commissioner Thomas to be present via telephone.
I make a motion that Commissioner Thomas be present over the phone.
All right. I need a second, please.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Commissioner Thomas, are you here? Can you hear us?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. All right. Now we need an approval of the minutes. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
You can call the roll.
Yes, I will call the roll for you. Board Member Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you. Board Member Smith?
Present.
This is for approval of the minutes. I will need a yes or a no, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Board Member Bennett?
Yes.
Board Member Muniz?
Yes.
Board Member Vega?
Yes.
Board Member Gordon?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. There are no postponements. Is there any public participation here this evening that would like to address something that is not on the agenda? All right. Seeing none, all right, then we can move to the consent agenda. There are 2 items on the consent agenda this evening. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
A motion to approve?
I'll second.
Board Member Thomas?
Yes.
Board Member Smith?
Yes.
Board Member Bennett?
Yes.
Board Member Muniz?
Yes.
Board Member Vega?
Yes.
Board Member Gordon?
Yes. All right, so no old business. Then we can move to new business. The first item on the agenda is item number 1, Rancho Las Fincas preliminary plat. Before we vote on this, I'd like to make a comment of what we plan on doing this evening for that item. Because the item calls for basically 2 votes, one on the plat and one on a road waiver. So we will split this in half. We'll take 1 vote on the plat and 1 vote on the road waiver. So John, if you want to go ahead, do I have to make a motion first to do that? You have to make a motion to approve this.
Chair Gordon, this is Catherine for the record. Would like to maybe encourage the commission to make a motion to suspend the rules, meaning that you're going to split it in 2 and vote on it as 2 separate items. And that should be sufficient for at least that portion. And then, of course, you can vote to make a motion to hear it all together.
Okay. Then I need a motion to suspend the rules to split item number 1 into 2 parts, 1 to vote on the plat and 1 to vote on the road waiver.
I make a motion to suspend the rules on the preliminary plat and the waiver.
Commissioner Smith, I second that motion.
Board Member Thomas?
Yes.
Board Member Smith?
Yes.
Board Member Bennett?
Yes.
Board Member Muniz?
Yes.
Board Member Vega?
Yes.
Board Member Gordon?
Yes. All right. John?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commission. As Commissioner Gordon stated, this is going to be 2 separate items that you will be voting on separately. Today, it's for the approval of the Ranchos Las Fincas preliminary plat and the associated road improvements waiver.
Yeah, I can't hear.
So the current conditions of the property, it's located currently right now northwest of the northwest corner of Dunn Drive and Aldrich Road. It is approximately 9.35 acres, and it's currently zoned REM, which is our residential estate mobile. As it sits right now, it's an undeveloped vacant tract of land. From our zoning map, we can see here, it is the one that's highlighted with the checkered type pattern. The aerial map right here shows which property it is. So what they're proposing for the preliminary plat is an 8 single-family residential lot gated community. It's going to provide one interior roadway to provide access off of Dunn Road. Associated with this was a road improvements waiver request for Aldrich Road to provide the necessary road improvements such as sidewalks, curb and gutter, and asphalt. As part of this request, the developer was going to propose to extend utilities, essentially gas and sewer. In lieu of the roadway improvements, this is the proposed preliminary plat. At the time, reviews were sent out to all relevant agencies. Staff approved the preliminary plat. However, staff did deny the road improvements. This was then taken to the Development Review Committee, or DRC. Discussions took place, and they did provide a recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Notices were also sent out to the surrounding properties within a 500-foot radius. We did receive one email in regards to signage located along Aldrich Road and adjacent properties, not necessarily to the concern of the actual development of the subdivision. Staff recommendation approved the preliminary plat based on the following findings, which was that it complies with the City of Las Cruces subdivision code and the City of Las Cruces design standards. The proposed preliminary plat complies with all requirements of the 2001 zoning code, and it was approved by the DRC on June 2nd of 2021. Staff did propose a recommendation of denial for the road improvement waiver request, based on the fact that the Ranchos Las Fincas preliminary plat complies with the requirements and standards of the Las Cruces subdivision code and design standards. Based upon review of the relevant city staff, at this moment we have nothing that really enforces the development of utility extensions on the property. They are allowed to use propane and gas, so at that moment we don't have anything solid to. DRC on June 2nd did approve the preliminary plat and provided a recommendation of denial for the road improvement waiver. Today's options are to vote yes to approve, vote no to deny, or vote yes with conditions, or to vote to table.
All right, thank you, John. Is there anybody here from the petitioner who wishes to speak? All right then, seeing none. Are there any of our commissioners who would like to make some comments? All right, seeing none, then I have a comment. I think the improvements, the road improvements, certainly would not contribute any benefit to the area, or certainly improve safety or access for police and fire. Since the petition does not involve the development of the property being on Aldrich Road, this is another reason to grant the waiver. So the approval, so that is my opinion. I think that it's, I was out there, I did my site visit. I looked at Dunn Road, there's certainly no reason there to do anything. That's a paved road, but Aldrich Road is just a gravel enhanced dirt road. And the property at this time is not slated, that borders on Aldrich Road is slated for improvement, or for development. So I don't think there's any reason that we should grant a waiver that won't be necessary. So in that case, I guess we have to now, make a motion on Part 1, which is the plat. So if I could have a motion to approve the plat, item number 1.
I make a motion to approve the plat for item number 1.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
All right.
Board Member Thomas?
Yes, I vote yes. Complies with the subdivision code and the probate procedures.
Thank you. Board Member Smith?
I vote yes. I vote yes. It complies with the Elevate Las Cruces comprehensive plan, and I think it's, it also complies with the Fairfield plan.
Board Member Bennett? Mr. Smith, can you please turn your microphone off?
Oh.
Thank you. Sorry.
I vote yes, based on staff recommendation, and it meets all zoning codes.
Thank you. Board Member Muniz?
I will vote yes. My vote's based upon staff recommendations, and they've met all conditions.
Board Member Vega?
I vote yes. It complies with zoning code and based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Gordon?
I vote yes, based on findings, my site visit, staff recommendation, and its ability to go along with the element Las Cruces. In that case, okay, so the vote is then 6-0. Okay, then we go on to item number 2, which would be the road waiver.
Point of order, Commissioner Gordon.
Yes.
I do have a member of the public that would like to speak about the road improvements portion, at least.
All right. Thank you, no problem. Is that person in the chamber?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Boyd, if you'd like to step up. And then if you'll just state your name for the record.
Before you begin, sir, would you please state your name?
Professor David Michael Boji,
Okay.
PhD.
And I have to swear you in before you speak. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see. I live directly across the street from the property that has the proposed waivers, so I'd like to speak to it. I'm diagonally across about 9 acres I have. No, it's 6 acres, about 6 acres, horse ranch. I am welcoming the Rancho Las Fincas development, so I would like to raise a couple of issues with the city, if that's permissible.
Sir, you can speak whatever you like.
Thank you. Okay, there's a no dumping fine of $300 according to Section City Code 19-45 for the past week. This lazy boy chair has been dumped on the roadside. There's been no action. Would call for the enforcement of Section 19-45. According to that regulation, that is littering and it's illegal dumping. The street signs on the corner of Dunn and Aldrich, where the proposed development will take place, we would like to see that development, but as you can see in it, 2 throughways, Dunn and Aldrich, there is a single stop sign on one of the 4 corners. That stop sign was placed by the city, but it's placed inappropriately because that's actually the land of the New Mexico public land, the state land office. It's confused with the Bureau of Land Management, but I've checked it out and I've talked to the people and they've done site visits, and I want to explain problems with the installment of the street sign at Aldrich and Dunn, and the lack of stop signs on the four corners. When you come down Aldrich on the paved section, it does say pavement ends, no city services. However, there is city services to the right on Aldrich, but no city services to the left. And speaking to the former city manager, the reason for this is there's one holdout person that doesn't even live there that is afraid that the taxes will be raised, so there's no street maintenance on that part of Aldrich, even though it's on the city.
Sir, excuse me for interrupting you.
Yes, sir.
I will allow you to speak whatever you like as far as pertaining to the road waiver is concerned. All these other items, I think, are legitimate concerns
Right.
that you could probably address to respective city departments such as traffic and whatever takes care of dumping and street signs. But if you have something to say about the road waiver, that will we appreciate your limited
Okay.
comments.
Well, my understanding of the word roadway is it's the road Aldrich, the entrance from Aldrich. And right now, it's a dangerous intersection, and the plan, as we understand, the new owners have said they're going to put up a 6-foot wall, rock wall, which is a good improvement. However, you won't be able to see oncoming traffic in either direction. The other thing is the water is being polluted in the area, including on the property and all around the 4 parts of that stop area on Aldrich and Dunn where the new property is being waivered. The city plan for 40 years includes the water. These are 2 maps from your city plan. There are no dumping signs in the whole area of this part of the East Mesa, and we feel we're being treated differently than Sonoma Ranch. This is a county sign, and there's a reason why the county can't put up signs that I'm going to explain to you now, and that is because the encroachment of illegal vehicle traffic. There used to be, when I moved there 14 years ago, barbed wire fence, and to the right was public land, and the county had their easement where they could put up no dumping signs. And I know that you have other things to talk about, but if you're going to move to that part of Las Cruces and East Mesa, there's some severe problems that need to be addressed. This is the only sign, and I got this put up after an effort of 14 years.
Sir, again, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're not addressing the item of a road waiver. Let me try to explain something to you what a road waiver basically is.
Yes, sir.
The road waiver is the city is going to require that portion that borders the property along Aldrich Road make certain road improvements such as sidewalks, drainage, sewer, streetlights. That's what a road waiver is in reference to. It has nothing to do with dumping or water drainage or full stop signs. So, I think all those comments are fine. I have no problem with you making them, but I think you should direct them specifically to the city.
Okay, I appreciate your reprimand.
I'm not reprimanding, I'm just trying to explain.
I appreciate your correction, and I would like the opportunity to finish my presentation for 2 minutes.
Yes, sir.
All right. There is nightly gunfire, almost on a nightly basis, of AR-15s in the area, and Mike Telos, who lives also directly across and would like to speak to you, hears the gunfire, including not only semi-automatics, but actual machine guns. We have called the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office doesn't realize that that green-bordered area that the city has, that the new property is inside of it, but if you're in this part of the East Mesa, there is no sheriff coming out, there's no city police coming out to enforce the law. And I spoke to Fish and Game today, and they said they're willing to start coming out. But we need to have the city council make it clear to codes enforcement who come on these properties, what is the jurisdiction of the city, what is the jurisdiction of the county, what is the jurisdiction of the state and the federal government. So that's what I'm speaking to. I want to just back up here. How do I back up? Let's see. Previous. Okay. All right. I want to give you an idea what it sounds like at night on this neighborhood. I don't know if you can hear the gunfire, but that's single gunfire. That's AR-15 semi-automatic, and it's also the bump work of this record. I am a Vietnam veteran, and I do not like to have automatic, semi-automatic fire. I did my service to the country, and I don't like it. My neighbors are afraid to walk in the area. Well, I spoke to a lady who said that she goes to this pond one time to see what was there, and people were firing AR-15s, and a young boy was firing it, and the bullet was by her ear, and she said to the man, "Please stop," and he said, "Get out of here." This is a violation of the law for recreational vehicles to be in this area. It is a violation to be burning tires and trees and illegal dumping, and to have a tax rating of 1 in this area is kind of unconscionable, and I'm done. I know you have other things to do, but I appreciate it if you would look into how to communicate the actual regulations of the city to residents so that the off-road illegal vehicle traffic stops. I have a $35 permit to be on public land. I pay for that permit to the state land office. It does not entitle for a motor vehicle to go anywhere else but on the official roads. It doesn't allow to go from Wilt and Davis off Aldrich into this property. And I know you have other things to do, and I appreciate the time you've taken to listen to me. I am done.
Thank you, sir. I'll tell you what I'd like you to do. I personally can't take these issues to city council or the relevant departments of the city, but if you would certainly make a list of those items that are of your concern, dumping, full stop signs, and water ponding, and anything else that you think you would like to have the city to look into, if you please just make a list and perhaps give it to someone in the community development department, and they could pass it on to the certain departments that I hope that will take care of these problems for you. I can understand your concern, and they are concerns that I probably would have if I lived there. But again, sir, thank you for your comments.
Thank you. I've been a resident of Las Cruces for 23 years. Love it. I love the East Mesa. I've been there for 14 years. But these problems are ongoing, and it's your responsibility to correct them. Thank you, sir.
Is there anyone else who has any comments?
Mr. Chair, I do have Moy Surveying, who's the representative for the road improvement waivers on behalf of the property owner.
Okay. Sir, before you start, will you please speak your name?
Anton Magallanes.
Okay. Before you speak, I'd like to swear you in, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
All right, thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you all. Good evening. Just to clarify, one of the things I wanted to mention was that when John was giving the presentation, he stated that we were able to have gas along with propane at the site. And what I don't want to speak out of turn for him, but what I think he meant to say was that because of where the location of the property is, we're actually allowed to have propane along with septic. And so the big question at this point is the septic. Excuse me. We've worked with the utility department to talk about our opportunities for gas so that we don't place propane tanks on the sites once the proposed development is approved, if it in fact, well, since it has been. And so what the city utility department is willing to do is bring gas from Davis Drive, or from Davis across down through Aldrich, and then we will in turn tie our road into Dunn Drive. So the city utility department, not at the cost of the developer, will bring gas service to what would be our new proposed roadway, and we will tie into the service there. So then that would thus eliminate us having the requirement of propane tanks, which I think is a benefit, on the proposed development here. The second one, which is where the road waiver comes into play, is that since we are not required to tie into the sewer system, since we are far enough away, we're proposing that we have a waiver for the road improvements on Aldrich, for all road improvements on Aldrich, the 600 feet, and in turn, the owner is willing to provide sewer through an adjacent lot that they have, which would then connect down into their road, thus eliminating the need for septic tanks also on this site. because of those costs, we know that it's hard for them to manage both of them. And so what we're hoping for by requesting this road waiver is that we can have the road waiver in place, and then they would agree to, in fact, not place septic systems. If the road waiver unfortunately wasn't, I think they may have to forego the cost of placing a sewer system and then opt for septic tanks on their lots. So with that said, I mean, we just recently saw a huge ordinance that was unanimously voted for residents tying into sewer systems at their lots, helping to not create more of a groundwater contamination issue with more septic tanks. And I think this is an area in question. And so I think the proposed waiver, which would then in turn trigger the sewer system in place, would allow us to not continue to compound that problem as it exists. When we were working with staff and through the DRC process, they did state that Aldrich was a very low significant road. As we've seen Davis and Dunn have its improvements built out through recent paving projects, and unfortunately Aldrich didn't make the cut. And for those reasons, the other concern, when we did in fact vote and receive denial for the waiver through staff recommendation, every staff member mentioned, you know, I just can't find areas in the code that can support the waiver, which kind of threw me for a little bit of a loop, because I don't think there would be areas in the code that would align very closely with the waiver, or else we wouldn't be in fact asking for a waiver. So yes, we are requesting a waiver for the Aldrich improvements. We did have one staff member vote in favor for that, and I think because of helping to not continue to compound that septic water pollution, as Dr. Boji mentioned, issue, along with staff mentioning that Aldrich is already a very low significant road, we're hoping that we could receive approval for our waiver. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir, don't leave.
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone from the commission who has any questions? All right, if not, I do.
Yes, sir.
I was informed that on Aldridge, there is gas and sewer. Is that correct? That's what you said?
There is neither of those services at this time on Aldrich.
I'm sorry, from Dunn, I guess.
So
Dunn.
Dunn does...
Not Dunn, I'm sorry, Davis, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Davis,
sir.
okay.
You are correct.
So I also was told that there is water on Dunn. Is that also correct?
Yes, sir.
You'll be tying into that for your water?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry?
So there will be no need for wells or anything?
Correct. No need for well, no need for septic if the road waiver is improved, or, exactly.
Okay. So basically what you're asking us to do to help you avoid to pay the large cost of the road improvements that you feel are not necessary, you will have then the minimal cost of now extending sewer from Davis and gas to your property for this new development.
So through talks with the city though, however, they have already agreed to tie, not at the expense of the owner, gas from Davis through Aldrich and then up to where our street would intersect Dunn and our new proposed street. So we would be placing a gas service line within the compound or the confines of our road, tying into what would then be at that time an existing city gas line.
All right, I understand. Does everybody on the commission understand that?
I do.
Are there any questions?
Commissioner Vega, I have a question.
Yeah, Commissioner Vega, go ahead.
So in terms of the cost difference of, this is my first in-person meeting, so I'm probably going to have a lot of questions. But in terms of the cost to developer versus city, if we were to grant the waiver, how significant are we looking at?
I don't know if I have the answer to that question. I know and the owner is here, and I know that they've reached out to some of the contractors to try and start to estimate what those cost differences are. I know that it is not feasible for them to provide both improvements to Aldrich and a sewer line. Although I know there might be, we have to remember that it's 600 feet of frontage for the Aldrich improvement. With the sewer line, they would be going the full length of the road and then through another adjacent parcel, which is just to the west, tying into potentially placing a new manhole into Davis Road. So I don't have a dollar-to-dollar comparison as to what it would cost to do Aldrich versus the septic system, or excuse me, the sewer system. However, I don't think that the sewer system is going to be by any means inexpensive as well, because they do have to traverse that much distance and then of course place a new manhole and make sure everything is at grade.
Louise?
Yes, I have a question. I'm a little confused.
Sure.
You have a choice, am I correct, of putting in sewer lines or septic tanks?
Yes, ma'am.
I find that a lot of homeowners who have septic tanks hook up with the sewers, and it's quite an expense. You're already, am I understanding that you're already not that far from sewer line hookups? So wouldn't it be more profitable for you to update the streets and the development, hooking everything up to the sewers?
Correct. I mean,
Because people don't really like septic tanks. That's a yearly fee to clean them and pollution, and we're looking at environmental things today. And maybe I misunderstood you. You have a choice. Why aren't you taking the choice of upgrading and connecting to city sewers?
well, you're right. So because of the proximity of this parcel, they are not within the minimum footage required to have to, in fact, by code, connect to a sewer system. So they're far enough away to then have the option, if they chose to, the owner that is, when development comes, to either place propane tanks and/or place septic tanks. Now, this is a gated private community, and I have 2 of the 6 household members back there with us right now. So they're not looking to necessarily develop this at this point in time and sell it to anybody outside. So they're okay with incurring the cost of whatever that septic maintenance may be this, for however long they in fact do. But they've already told me which cousin and daughter and spouse are getting which lots. So it is a small scale development because we are only looking at 8 lots. I agree 100% with what you're stating in terms of the maintenance that a septic system has. However, we're looking at 8 lots versus anything larger than that in terms of a subdivision size.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else? All right. Let me just ask you something else to make sure that we all understand. I know that to do road improvements is not just, it's just a little thing. It's a matter of putting in sidewalks and gutters and streetlights and paving the road. And we're talking about a distance of maybe, I don't even know how many feet it is on your
600.
property. How many?
600.
All right, so it's almost ludicrous to pave and do all these things for 600 feet, and the rest of Aldridge stays the way it is. Really is no point. There's nothing in the future that looks like there's going to be any development out there that's going to require road improvements. So based on that, I think really the best thing to do is to go ahead and have them bring the sewer and gas in from Davis, and whatever your cost is of hooking up to that,
Right.
I think solves a lot of problems and certainly reduces the amount of your financial exposure. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. And I think the other thing to point out is that, as Dr. Boji mentioned, Aldrich currently is only servicing one side of the road with, either the BLM land south of that, and then, of course, the portion that we would be paving would only then, you'd have 4 houses that don't, in fact, have any paving until it reaches Davis. So it does seem like a really small stretch to pave such a small area.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else who has some comments from the audience?
Do I have a comment, Vice Chair?
Is that Thomas? I'm sorry, Commissioner Thomas, is that you? I can hardly hear you.
This is Commissioner Thomas. Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
So, I wanted to know how much of Aldridge is there then, and is the condition of the road the same the whole length of Aldridge?
I believe it is. I think Aldridge all the way down is nothing more than a dirt gravel road, is that correct? How far down does it go? I'm not familiar with as far down as what I looked. Doctor?
Does anybody know?
Okay, I think the gentleman at the dais knows the answer to that. Sir, could you please state your name for the record?
My name is Michael Tejas.
All right, excuse me, John, do you know the answer?
Excuse me, sir. This is John Castillo for the record. Commissioner Gordon, Aldrich Road is So Aldrich Road has, it's not completely asphalt. It's a mix of gravel and asphalt, but it does go all the way down from Davis to Dunn. So basically, the preliminary plat portion of it would be 600 feet. The remaining lots would not have those necessary requirements, such as sidewalks, curb and gutter.
Right, okay, thank you. Commissioner Thomas, does that answer your question?
I have a further question then. So if they did do the road, they would only be doing half of it, right?
Yes, they would only be doing half. They would just be doing their portion of it.
So they'd only be doing one half of 600 feet of a road that how long do you think the entire road is?
I'm sure the road must be at least a half a mile long.
I believe it's between half a mile to a mile.
Right, it's quite long.
Okay. So they would just be doing this fairly small section and only half of the road is on this whole road, and the rest of it all is the same kind of with gravel and asphalt. So I don't see any reason to do that.
Right.
Put in that 600 feet of half of the road, half of 600 feet of the road, and make it different from the entire rest of the road.
Okay, is that it, Commissioner Thomas? Is that it? Thank you.
That's it, thank you.
Okay. Sir, do you still like to speak?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, would you repeat your name again, please?
My name is Mike Tejas.
All right, before you speak, I have to swear you in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you. You go ahead, sir. Thank you.
I'm a resident of the corner of Dunn and Aldridge. I live directly across the street from where this proposed development is going to take place. And my question is, well, first of all, I do welcome the new development. I have no problem with the improvements that are proposed for this area. My questions are, shouldn't the city require, before any more development takes place up there, shouldn't the city be making an effort to bring in all the utilities? After all, we are in the city limits. There's currently no gas in my area. There's no sewer. The only reason we have water is because the city bought out Rinata Water, a few years back. And other than that, the only improvement that's ever taken place in the last 30 years is back in the late 80s when the city incorporated that area, when it annexed that area, is the pavement of Dunn Street. And that was done without any utilities in place. So it seems to me like, the city should be doing their part, and it shouldn't be fair on the new owners to have to shell out all the costs. Shouldn't the city have some sort of responsibility to bring in all the utilities to make it just like the rest of the city? Because another thing is, it just seems like that particular part of the city is one area that's been forgotten for the last 30 years. It's like we don't matter out there.
I understand your concern, but perhaps Mr. Ware from Community Development be able to answer your question.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, this is David Ware, Deputy Director, Community Development Department. Mr. Tejas, the city policy is usually for development to pay for itself. When a subdivision such as this comes in, they're responsible for extending all of the utilities and streets to support that. That's the way our development ordinances read. And so the other projects within the East Mesa, would it be something that would have to be dealt through the city council's budgeting process and capital improvement projects. But tonight, we're just talking about this particular development and the requirements the code has for it for them to subdivide the property.
It just somehow doesn't seem fair that the new owner should be forced to shell out the entire cost when the city has taken no effort, nothing to do anything for the last 30 years or so. And another thing too is, no one's brought up the fact that there are no fire hydrants out there. And how can you allow development without adequate fire protection? Like I said, I don't have anything against them coming up there, but shouldn't the city be making an effort to at least install fire hydrants out there?
I'll tell you, I do have a suggestion for you. I think these are legitimate concerns, and I think I would also be concerned about the same things. Perhaps you might address these concerns to your city councilor in your district.
Yeah.
And I would want to speak to him or her directly and bring these concerns to him or her and see if there's something that she can give you either a good answer or perhaps do something about it.
Well, I just thought maybe what I said may have something to do with the outcome of whether you approve this or not, and it just seems like, you know.
All right, well, thank you, sir.
Okay, and I guess that's all I got to say. Thanks.
Thank you. All right.
Could I say something?
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So that, used to be my constituent, so, and here's that pretty hip street and this, the sidewalks, the streets, utilities and all of it were put in by the developers and the builders, and when people buy those lots, they're paying this for those things that. So in Meredith, they were developed that kind of, it's up to the, who live there to go and put it up, and put that stuff in. You need people to get off the road, but if on the street, do that. And the city will help you. Sometimes you have grants, help finance. So that's what I was talking to the city.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Thomas. All right, is there anyone else in the audience who has anything to say? If not, then I'd like to entertain a vote on the second part of this. Sir, does it only pertain to the road grader or nothing else?
Yes, it does.
All right, I'll give you a minute. Just state your name again, please.
Professor David Boji.
Thank you.
It's been said that this is a gravel road on Aldrich with some paving. To be more accurate, between Porter and Dunn, it is paved. It just doesn't have sidewalks. The city also comes regularly after the monsoon rains and does sweeping of that portion of Aldrich. After you go eastward at Dunn on Aldrich, then it is gravel all the way to the end. So if this development actually, if the city meets them and does sidewalks around the property, it's actually going to continue the sidewalks already undone and then move them to the west through the property. So that is a development that is worth considering. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, is there anyone else? All right, John?
So as I mentioned before, this is a recommendation for the approval of a road improvements waiver. The next step after you provide your recommendation, we will go to City Council for approval.
All right, then, do we need another motion, or we have the motion? All right, we need another motion then. All right, we have to vote, we have to make another motion to, according to the item, is to deny the waiver. You can please vote, and if you vote yes, you must state your cause. Want to call the roll? Oh, that's what I say. All right, I'm sorry, I have to correct myself. You have to make a motion to either approve or deny the waiver. Now
I
we
make
need
a motion
second.
I make a motion to approve the waiver.
I need a second.
I second the motion.
All right, so now we need a vote. All right, then now we need a vote. Can you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Board Member Thomas?
So we're voting to approve the waiver,
Yes, we are.
and we're not voting for the denial suggested.
Commissioner Thomas, to make sure we're clear, because we're having difficult understanding what you're saying, are you voting to deny or approve?
I'm asking, we're being asked to vote to approve the waiver.
We didn't hear what you said, I'm sorry.
We're being asked to vote to approve the waiver.
Right, well, how do you vote?
I vote yes to approve the waiver because I can see that only half of 600 feet
Why would
doesn't
she do?
worth doing.
All right, you can call the roll then?
Yes. Board Member Smith?
I'll vote yes to approve the waiver.
Board Member Bennett?
Yes, I vote to approve the waiver due to financial hardship that would accrue from building out Aldridge and the benefit to the environment to have this city sewer.
Board Member Muniz?
I vote to approve the waiver. We've had this problem come up before, and I thought staff was going to talk to us about it. It's quite an expense on homeowners, and this is a small private development, so, and it's going to come up again because people have property out there. They're trying to improve it, and this is a hindrance to improving some of that property. We need to have something, I believe, that's more consistent when we have this problem come up.
Board Member Vega?
I motion to approve.
I need your reasoning, please. Thank you.
Just based on some of the comments shared today and the fact that the road is already halfway done, makes sense to complete it.
Thank you. Board Member Gordon?
I vote to approve based on the fact that this would be very costly, and I think some of the things that they're planning on doing by extending the gas lines and the sewer lines are a very good solution to this problem. So therefore, I vote yes. I vote to approve. All right, I think that takes care of that item. All right. Can we move on now to item number 2, which is the Valley Drive Industrial Park Master Plan? Can I have a motion, please? Somebody please make a motion.
I make a motion to approve item number 2.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, John?
Okay, today we're going to bring you the Valley Drive Industrial Park Master Plan. We are requesting approval of the master plan. It is the subject property west of Valley Drive. It's located on multiple parcels. It comprises 7.69 acres, and it's currently zoned M1, M2. The properties are developed industrial commercial use lots. Here is a zoning map that shows a zoning designation. Here's an aerial image. The proposal of the master plan is going to subdivide 3 existing lots for future development of industrial lots into 3 to 12 industrial use lots utilizing an alternate summary process. It will connect 2 existing lots through Farney Lane, and it also meets the requirements of the subdivision code design standards in the 2001 zoning code. It's also supported by Elevate Las Cruces as it falls into the regional commercial place type. Here's an image of the proposed master plan. As we can see from here, the old Coca-Cola company is the larger lot in the middle. It will be subdivided into 3 or less lots depending on what's moving in, as well as the other 2 adjacent lots. Public notice was sent out to all relevant agencies. They all supported the master plan. And there was notice sent out to surrounding properties. Staff at the time that the presentation was made and Reports were done. There was no phone calls or emails in regards to the proposed master plan. The Design Review Committee met on June 16th of 2021 to review the subdivision from an infrastructure utilities improvement standpoint. After some discussion, the DRC recommended approval for the proposed master plan. Staff recommends approval based on the following findings. The master plan meets the objectives of a master plan and required by the subdivision code. Based upon review by city staff, the proposed master plan complies with the 2001 zoning code, the subdivision code, and the design standards. Today, we do have an option to vote yes to approve, vote no to deny, vote yes with conditions, or vote to table.
All right, thank you, John. Is there anyone from the petitioner who's requesting to make a statement? All right, so state your name, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Paul Pompeo with Southwest Engineering.
All right, you know I must swear you in. You've done this before?
Yes, sir.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did have a short presentation. However, it mimics a lot of what staff has already presented, so I'll put that aside. I stand here to take any questions that the commission might have. This is a pretty straightforward application. We're looking at redeveloping underutilized industrial property into more opportunities with smaller lots, so as to bring more business to that area of Las Cruces. And so I stand for questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the commission? Seeing none. Are there anybody from the
Thank you, Mr.
audience who
Chairman.
wishes to make a comment or have a question? All right, seeing none, then we can have a vote.
Board Member Thomas?
I vote yes based on this approval from the staff, the subdivision design standards. And I think it's a good idea to do smaller lots, which could encourage more small business.
Thank you. Board Member Smith?
I vote yes based on site visit and also with compliance with Elevate Las Cruces, and also just the redevelopment of a already previously industrial area.
Board Member Bennett?
I vote yes. Meets zoning code, supports Elevate Las Cruces, and based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Muniz?
I'm going to vote yes upon the recommendations of staff. And I hope once it's built, the buildings are filled and don't sit empty because we need jobs in the city.
Board Member Vega?
I vote yes, based on a site visit and a staff recommendation.
Board Member Gordon?
I vote yes based on findings of my site visit on staff recommendation, and certainly it will definitely do something to enhance here and perhaps bring in some new jobs. Thank you. I guess that's 6-0. Okay. Is it all right for us to take items 3 and 4 together?
Chair Gordon, members of the commission, yes, we can hear both the master plan and the zone change related to Rinconada Industrial Park together. Again, I do recommend that there be a motion to suspend the rules so that those could be heard together and then voted upon separately.
All right, then I need a motion to suspend the rules that we, although that we will discuss both these items, but vote on them separately, item 3 and item 4. Can I have a vote, please? I need a motion, I'm sorry.
I make a motion to suspend the rules so that we can vote on both of these, or combine them.
All right, a second?
I second that motion.
All right, roll.
Board Member Thomas?
Yes.
Board Member Smith?
Yes.
Board Member Bennett?
Yes.
Board Member Muniz?
Yes.
Board Member Vega?
Yes.
Board Member Gordon?
Yes. Okay, John.
Thank you, Commission. Today we have the Rancho Del Rey Master Plan Amendment Number 3 and a corresponding zone change. Current conditions are the Rancho Del Rey Master Plan, which is currently 279 0.438 acres. Today, we will be looking at changes that encompass 14.64 acres and incorporates 3.95 acres into the master plan. The subject properties are located in the northwest corner of Rinconada Boulevard and Bataan Memorial East. It is consistent of multiple parcels, and it does contain a vacant and developed commercial and industrial uses. The current zoning right now as it stands is M1, M2 industrial standard, C3C commercial high intensity with a condition, and A2, which is a defunct zoning designation from our 1981 zoning code. Here's a zoning map of our subject properties. Here's an aerial view. In the lower left-hand corner, it is a commercial development as a business center. The master plan modifies the boundaries of two planning parcels designated as P1 and P22, and it will also incorporate 3.95 acres of undeveloped land into those boundaries. As part of this, there is going to be an additional roadway providing access to Rinconada Boulevard and Bataan Memorial East. The amendment also proposes 5 commercial industrial use lots that will follow boundary lines of the associated Rinconada Industrial Park preliminary plat that we'll be hearing after this. The amendment also proposes a secondary access to the north along what we call planning parcel P3 for future roadway development and providing access to Park Hill Estates. Here is the proposed master plan. As you can see, the zoomed in one is the secondary access for the future local roadway. This one is the boundary adjustments. As we can see, we're incorporating this 3.5 acres here, or 3.95 acres into the boundary. Sorry. And this is a land use table depicting what the new parcels are going to be. The second part of this is a zone change proposal. The subject properties conform to associate the Rinconada Industrial Park boundaries in corresponding zoning districts. The proposed zones are going to be for lots 1 and 2, which are a stacked zoning of M1, M2, and C3. This will allow for any changes of businesses within that shopping center, as well as provide the ability to increase the density of industrial standards. Lot 3 is going to be M1, M2, which is our industrial standard. Lot 4 will be a C2 commercial medium density zoning district, and Lot 5 will be C3 as well. At the time, reviews were sent out to all relevant agencies. Staff had no major concerns for the approval of the master plan. At the time of the presentation and staff reports that were sent out, staff did not receive any phone calls or emails. The staff recommendation is that P&Z is the final authority on the master plan and a recommending body to City Council on the rezoning. Individual motions and votes for each proposal are needed. Staff recommends approval of both proposals based on the following. The master plan and rezoning are consistent with submittal requirements outlined in Section 38.2 of our zoning code and Article 2 of the subdivision code. We also base upon staff's analysis the proposal meets the intent of the comprehensive plan Elevate Las Cruces and outlined in Section 38-2 of the zoning code as amended and fulfills the purpose of the Las Cruces Municipal Code Section 2-382. This master plan amendment and rezoning is also harmonious with and not out of character with the uses in existing zoning districts of the surrounding area. On July 14th, our Development Review Committee met and recommended approval of the master plan amendment. Today, our options are to vote yes to approve, vote no to deny, or vote yes with conditions.
All right, thank you, John. Anyone from the public who has something to say?
You got to run the computer.
All right.
So I'm up here with.
Sounds good.
For your record, my name is Eddie Benz.
Okay, sir, I know you're familiar with this also. I had to still swear you in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon, and hello, Sheriff Talbot. Wish you was here so we could wave at each other. Anyway, John, you did a good job in presentation, and I can't resist the opportunity to get up and visit with you folks just a little bit. John, would you help me out and pull out the master plan amendments? We'll start with that and give you a little bit of history of the way we think. Number one, you can see over in our lower right-hand corner, the area that is ballooned is a roadway that goes from my project into the Park Hill subdivision. This was a roadway that was negotiated between developers to provide a fire exit into that region for the benefit of the neighborhoods, giving us a better fire access, and also it gave us an access for a sewer line to feed an area that was questionable whether we could feed it. So that is a no-brainer, so to speak. If we take a look, let's blow up the industrial subdivision a little bit there and see it. Okay, again, you can see that the new proposed road in the subdivision goes into a cul-de-sac. In looking at good development, I feel that we did not need industrial traffic traveling through an industrial area entering into a residential area, so that we isolated the industrial activity with a cul-de-sac and closed the road, which was proposed at one point in time to go back in through a residential subdivision. And again, to me, that's a no-brainer, and it's a thing that makes a better project for me and all the other people involved. The new road that is proposed to come in there, obviously, we've had to go through the highway department, and we have had approvals and grants and such, and negotiated the acceleration lanes on that particular item, so that those things are moving flawlessly there. John, help me out, and let's go to the map area that shows boundaries a little bit better in the, yeah, this is, the one, the area that shows boundaries. There we go. This one it gives a little better explanation. The large area there that says subject property is property that has been zoned industrial, and this back portion for the last 30, 40 years, it was zoned a long time ago. The small odd-shaped property to the right-hand side there next to Rinconada is a piece of property that I just acquired through a property exchange with the city of Las Cruces. That property was acquired in a trade to enlarge the Veterans Park so that the park grew by another 5 acres for parking and improvements to access to behind the dam. And in exchange, this piece of land was acquired in that exchange. This piece of land carried a agriculture or an unzoned situation when it was acquired because it had been sitting in abeyance for that time. So therefore, looking at it, nobody wants to live on the corner of Rinconada and Highway 70, and it's a natural for some form of a commercial activity. And that's why we're asking for commercial activity on that corner, because it's what its logical use and best use is. The industrial activity is still staying there and is doing a little cleanup as far as the boundaries are concerned so that they comply with the lot lines of the new subdivision. But it gives you a little explanation of what's going on and what I think is good planning. And it's an opportunity to visit with you folks just a little bit and give you an idea of what's going on. The subdivision layout is again, simple lots blocked off for potential use for future development activity. With that, I think I've said enough, and I will leave the door open. I'd be glad to answer any questions you all might have regarding it, and thank you for your time.
Mr. Binns, thank you. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Binns?
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to thank you for that breakdown.
Then I think that we might be ready for a vote. All right, then can we get a motion to vote on number one, which will be the approval of the master plan?
I make a motion to approve the master plan.
Can we get a second?
I second that motion.
All right, could you call the roll, please?
Board Member Thomas?
I vote yes based on staff recommendation and with Elevate Lot. And also because we've needed in industrial areas for a long time, so I see this happening.
Thank you. Board Member Smith?
I vote yes based on staff recommendation. Also, it appears to be best use of that property.
Board Member Bennett?
I vote to approve based on staff recommendation and the conversation today.
Board Member Muniz?
I'll vote yes on staff's recommendation, and I like the idea that this plan is for the present, but he's also, the development, he's looking toward the future also, development there.
Board Member Vega?
I vote yes. I think that was a very helpful overview also. It supports the Elevate Las Cruces and based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Gordon?
Based on findings on my site visit, staff recommendations, Elevate Las Cruces, and I think this is an excellent choice for this piece of land. It's been sitting there vacant as long as I've been living in Las Cruces, and I hope that we get some nice development in there that will also provide us with some jobs. Therefore, I guess we have a vote, 6-0. Thank you. All right, then we can move on to the next item, which is the Ricannada Industrial Park preliminary plat. Oh, I'm sorry, forgot already. We need a vote on the zone change. Got to get a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the zone change.
A second, please.
Second?
I forgot.
Board Members Thomas?
Yes, I vote yes based on staff recommendation and Eddie Ben's description. And I would also like to Mr. Ben, as companies out there, to please work with the workforce connection to make sure we have work with the skills those businesses need.
Thank you. Board Member Smith?
I vote yes based on staff recommendation and also it meets the objectives of the master plan.
Board Member Bennett?
I vote yes based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Muniz?
Vote yes on staff recommendations.
Board Member Vega?
I vote yes based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Gordon?
I vote yes based on staff recommendations. All right, thank you. Now we have a vote on that for 6-0. All right, now we can move on to item number 5, which is the Ricannada Industrial Park preliminary plat. Can I have a motion on that, please?
Make a motion to approve the preliminary plat.
And a second?
I second that motion.
All right, thank you. John?
Once again, good evening. This is an association, and it's also connected to the Rancho del Rey master plan amendment. This is for a requested approval for the Rinconada Industrial Park preliminary plat. Current conditions of the property are to be located east of Rinconada Boulevard and north of Bataan Memorial East. It is comprised of multiple parcels that are 18.598 acres. As previously stated, it is currently zoned M1, M2, C3, and A2. So we are proposing 5 lots, which are going to be commercial industrial use lots. There is going to be a proposed interior local roadway as explained previously, and it will also provide access to Rinconada Boulevard and Bataan Memorial East. Staff recommendation is approval for the following. Based on the following findings, the proposed preliminary plat known as Rinconada Industrial Park complies with the requirements and standards of the City of Las Cruces, subdivision code and design standards. It has been reviewed by relevant city staff, and complies with all requirements of the 2001 zoning code. It is also supported by Elevate Las Cruces Comprehensive Plan. On July 21st, the DRC met and provided a recommendation of approval. It was sent out to all relevant agencies and departments. There was no issues. It also took place at DRC for a discussion. No input was provided from the public as it was sent out to surrounding properties. Today's option is to vote yes to approve, vote no to deny, or vote yes with conditions.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone from the public or anyone, I'm sorry, is there anyone from the presenter of the petition who would like to make a comment? If not, anybody from the audience? Mr. Binns, you'd like to say something? Since you're already sworn in, we'll...
I'm still sworn in, just my first rodeo.
Okay.
I don't have a whole lot to add, but I have an opportunity to stand up and visit you folks for just a half a minute. And I think what we're looking at is for standing. But what I've got to say is a thank you to ladies and gentlemen in this room that are listening to this stuff back and forth. Unfortunately, the majority of Las Cruces has no idea of what you guys put up with, how many hours you spend trying to see that Las Cruces is developed in a reasonable manner. And I try to make people aware of people such as you that donate your time to a planning and zoning staff to try to see things are done reasonable. And it gives me an opportunity to express from not only I, but from some of the other developers in the area, a thank you for spending the time and the effort that you do trying to see Las Cruces built in a reasonable manner. And I thank you, and I'm sorry you have to put up with so much crap sometimes.
Mr. Binns, thank you very much for those kind words. We certainly do appreciate it, and we will hope that we will continue to do the same in the future. Okay, then we move on to item number 5, which is the Ricannada Industrial Park preliminary plat. Can I have a vote to approve?
I will make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right then, John? If we need a roll call.
Board Member Thomas?
I vote yes. Recommendation, and again, we need a hard industrial area, Mesa.
Board Member Smith?
I vote yes based on staff recommendation. Also, the neighborhood character and compatibility. I know as this area continues to grow residentially, I think it's important that we have areas for commercial development too. I think that'll help minimize as far as like travel that people make to shop, and also to just it just helps with just the livability of that area.
Board Member Bennett?
I vote yes based on staff recommendation, meets development standards of the zoning code and Elevate Las Cruces as well.
Board Member Muniz?
I'm voting yes on staff's approval.
Board Member Vega?
I vote yes. It supports Elevate Las Cruces and based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Gordon?
I vote yes on staff recommendations, my site visit, and that it does meet the zoning code requirements, and certainly will hope of the Elevate Las Cruces. All right then, thank you, John. Then we move to the last item on the agenda, which is item number 6, which is the zoning code amendments for cannabis use. Do we need a motion on this? No. To discuss it. We are, oh yeah, that's right.
Good evening, members of the commission. Let me go ahead and open the presentation. Alrighty, I'll go ahead and get started, if that's all right. Catherine Harrison Rogers, for the record. Hopefully most of you are aware, but back in March, the Cannabis Regulation Act, otherwise known as House Bill 2, was approved by the state to legalize recreational cannabis for adult use. The state has organized the Cannabis Control Division. It's part of the state's Regulatory and Licensing Division. They're responsible for the licensing and regulation of cannabis uses throughout the state. The city of Las Cruces also plays a role. We are in charge of determining the most appropriate land uses or zones for which those types of uses can occur. We process the business registrations related to this. And of course, we're applying the building codes as it relates to the various types of occupancies, be it retail or manufacturing or things of that nature. September 1st, we have some hard deadlines in terms of what we do with cannabis in the city. September 1st, the Cannabis Control Division will begin processing permits for the producers, those are the growers, the micro businesses, and also licensed medical cannabis businesses. Because of that, we need to respond and establish some guidance in our land use codes, namely zoning, to accommodate these types of uses. We are anticipating also in September 1st, excuse my stutter, that we will begin doing business registrations for these producers and the micro businesses and the licensed medical cannabis businesses. Starting January 1st of 2022, the state will begin issuing server permits and also the commercial medical licenses and start accepting all application types. So that's those retail businesses. And we will also begin doing business registrations for all the other cannabis business types. April 1st, it's anticipated that those retail sales of cannabis will begin. So with that little history, I'm going to talk about some of the land use implications. This is a really large growing and producing operation. This is a cannabis operation, and apologies, I don't recall if this one is in Indiana or if this one was in Canada. So the Cannabis Regulation Act outlines what we, as a municipality, can do. We can control the time, the manner, and the place of the cannabis businesses, including density. We cannot restrict transportation, prohibit operation, prohibit or limit signage. We can't require the relocation of existing businesses, such as the medical cannabis dispensaries, and we can't prohibit personal use or production. So what we have done and what's been presented before you today, and I'm going to give you a nice summary so that it's not as complicated as perhaps it may have seemed in your packet. We are modifying certain code sections to accommodate these uses. This does not include any changes to our overlays as they stand today. That's because they are unique and require oftentimes additional public hearings in front of the board specific to those overlays. But we will get to that. But this is to accommodate the rest of the city, at least for the time being. So with that, we are adding specific definitions to 38-21, where all of our definitions live. We are adding some uses specific to our residential zoning districts, our office and commercial districts, as well as our industrial districts. We are adding these uses to our land use table and parking requirements. We are adding these specifically to some agricultural and equestrian land uses, retail land uses, and again, manufacturing and other types of land uses, as well as adding some conditions and some of these uses with special use permits. Now, these are just a listing of the sections in the code that are being affected. I'm going to talk about what that really means in a nice, tidy summary for you. So these recommendations are for cannabis retail, to add those to the C1, which is our low-intensity commercial zone, neighborhood commercial is what that is, adding those to C2, and adding those to C3. These are all of our commercial zones in the city. We're recommending that there be no consumption in the C1 zone. The reason behind that is because the C1 zone really is intended for those small neighborhood commercial types of uses. And at this time, the city doesn't allow for bars or taverns at that location. So it made sense to us that there wouldn't be consumption sites at that location. We're also recommending that cannabis industry, that would be your growers, your manufacturers that produce various types of extracts, the big packaging and warehousing types of uses, be located in our standard industrial zone, which is the M1, M2, and the M3 zone, which is our more intensive industrial zone. Cannabis research laboratories, again, we are recommending that those be allowed in all of the industrial zones with the inclusion of our technology zone, which really is geared towards research. The reason behind that is the cannabis research is allowed to do some larger scale cultivation research and things of that nature. And then we're recommending that cannabis micro businesses, and this is our version of a micro business. The state's version, I'll explain that in a little bit more detail in a second. We're recommending that those be allowed in our agriculture and low density single family residential zones, specifically equestrian estate, EE, and REM, which is residential estate mobile, with a special use permit. Now, the reason behind that is because those specific zones allow for horticulture of all types, and they also allow breweries and wineries at those locations with a special use permit if, of course, those crops are grown on site. So it's a logical transition for that. In terms of the state's definition of micro business, which there's several different variations. There's a producer, there's the vertically integrated microbusiness. The maximum amount of plants that can be grown at those locations is 200 adult plants. And these are allowed not just at this location, but they're also allowed in all of the industrial zones that we've outlined here. And there is an opportunity in the code, if not otherwise allowed, to be able to utilize our infill development process to then allow those at other locations as well, specifically those underutilized or vacant lots or buildings around the city. You've seen many of those types of projects come before you in terms of those infill development projects. It is a free process and it is an expedited process that the city does for people who qualify. There are some conditions that we're recommending. We're recommending that all cannabis uses be 300 feet from a school or daycare. Now, the state has very specific requirements in terms of essentially what that can be. They are trying to prevent, I guess, jurisdictions perhaps from making those distances too great. And so this is actually the cap, the maximum cap of distance from a school or daycare that we can apply. We can't require more than this. And so we're requesting the maximum that was recommended by the state. For cannabis retailers, I'm gonna talk about these buffers in a little bit more detail. One of the elements that's listed in the House bill is that we can control density, time, place, and manner. We're recommending 300 feet from single-family residential zones and 1,000 feet from other cannabis retailers. That's in between. I'm going to talk about some of the public input we've received thus far about that, and also some of the discussions that took place at City Council yesterday evening. Again, one of the provisions that we've added is that these could be closer if a special use permit was obtained and would go before this commission. In terms of the cannabis industry, again, it's going to be 300 feet from a school or daycare. In addition to that, there is the ability, as part of the conditional uses, to allow accessory retail as part of industry. That's something that's already outlined for most of our industrial uses. It is capped, though. It really has to be primarily in industrial or manufacturing or growing. And then, of course, you can have a little retail shop attached to that. Again, cannabis micro business with a special use permit in the EE or REM zones, that would be accessory to a primary residence. You would have to live on site. It would be limited to no more than the 200 mature plants if you were to be growing on site. The products for sale must be grown on site and then located fully in an enclosed accessory building. And we're requesting that they be 100 feet from other residences. If you recall, these zones are actually large lot zones, and so generally the 100-foot distancing is predominantly not an issue to be able to achieve that on these lots that are half acre, acre, and larger. So I have some examples of some grow facilities, some large, some small, in terms of how they could be done. Just some photos. Some of them can be quite large when we're talking about some of the industrial grow areas, indoor and outdoor. Some examples of retailers, it looks like a pharmacy or any other sort of small boutique retail. We do have some policy considerations that have come about from a survey, a work session that we had with City Council, as well as a public meeting that we held, I think that was about a week ago. One of the questions was related to buffers. I'd like to talk about that first. That's maybe a little out of order of the slide, but it's one of our biggest concerns in terms of the distancing buffers to try to control densities within the city. The New Mexico Cannabis Chamber of Commerce actually did support a 600-foot or less buffer between businesses. Would like to point out that alcohol uses currently in the city and pharmacies are not buffered from one another or from residential zones, and we don't have density limitations at this point in time. I do want to point out, though, that alcohol was sort of a self-regulated in terms of the densities that could occur in the city until very, very recently. The state of New Mexico had a very limited number of alcohol permits that were available for people to purchase around the state. Of course, those limitations have been lifted. So at this point in time, the city has never limited the density of alcohol locations, but that's something that might change in the future depending upon what happens with the lifting of those restrictions by the state. Do want to say that we do have some buffers throughout the city. For example, I realize this is not apples to apples, but I just do want to point out there are some buffers that we do have in the city. Adult uses, we do have several buffers related to those. Amusement parks have buffers. Body shops and paint booths have buffers. And the extraction of raw materials have buffers. Again, this is an entirely different industry, but I do want to point out some of them do exist in our code. In terms of what occurred at City Council work session, it really was a split discussion in terms of whether or not the distancing buffer was supported in full, or if there was a thought process behind whether or not it should be reduced. I did hear from some councilors that one was supportive of the 1,000 feet, others were supportive of 600, or perhaps a city block, which is about 300 feet. And there were some questions about maybe exploring whether or not we should buffer at all, and perhaps to do a little bit more research about that. And I did want to speak about consumption areas as well. The way the state has it listed is they really don't differentiate between indoor and outdoor consumption areas in terms of how that's licensed. But we did want to point out that we do have some concerns about informed consent and outdoor smoking. So for example, if we had several outdoor consumption areas and people were to be in an area where they were exposed to that secondhand smoke, it could be problematic. And so at this point in time, we're actually recommending that a condition be added to this for consumption areas in particular, that they be limited to indoors and also be in compliance with the Clean Indoor Air Act as amended. It should be noted that the House bill actually says we may have consumption areas. We're not obligated to have them throughout the city, but I do want to point out that we don't exclude alcohol consumption areas, and so it doesn't really make logical sense, at least in a land use in a land use sense, to exclude those as well altogether. And so at this point in time, staff is recommending approval of these particular amendments with some of the considerations that we've outlined that I just did discuss about the indoor consumption areas, and perhaps leave it up to this this commission and city council to determine whether or not they're comfortable with that 1,000-foot buffer, or if there's a preference to reduce that moving forward. And today your options are to approve, to deny, vote yes with conditions, or to table. I would like to point out this is just a recommending body to city council, and while we're feeling pretty confident about the amendments that we've drafted thus far, there is a possibility that they could be amended at city council. And with that, I stand for any questions, and it does look like we have several people in the audience, so I'm sure there will be some public participation.
All right, thank you, Catherine, for that presentation. Very nice. But before we continue, I think we're going to need a motion to approve the zoning code amendments for cannabis use. So can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the cannabis uses amendment.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Does the commission have any questions? I didn't think so. Go ahead. Maybe a roll call on the motion? Yes. Well, I thought we would vote on that first, but okay. All right, can I ask, is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak? I only see one person, two people, two. All right then, can someone please come forward and we can start? Yeah. I guess you can have as much up to 5 minutes. We're not having that many people. So before you start, can we please have your name?
Derek Pacheco for the record.
All right, and I have to swear you in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth and the penalty of law?
I do.
All right, go ahead, sir.
Thanks for having me. I just wanted to voice my opinion for the residential buffer zones that are a potential for this. If we enact more rules on top of what we already have, we have lots of governing bodies, including codes and all sorts, right? If we start enacting rules as far as distance that don't match with other rules, such as alcohol consumption distances and available locations next to residential, then we're kind of re-stigmatizing the entire plant, and we're not trying to do that. So I'm asking you to consider dropping any sort of buffer zones for sales and consumption as related to residential. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Someone else? All right. Please state your name.
Alyssa Pearson.
All right, can I swear you in, please?
Yes, sir.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I swear.
Thank you. You can continue then.
Yes. So, for the most part, I want to say the rules that have been proposed so far exceeded my expectation. My biggest concern that I have is with the cannabis industry proposed rule. What I noticed in the presentation is we saw what industrial grows looked like, we saw what small grows looked like, we saw what retail locations look like, but there was no visualization of what production looks like. And part of the reason for that might be that production can vary. It can vary from a huge industrial manufacturing facility where you have volatile compounds, where you have potential for explosion. There was a big explosion at an extraction plant in Albuquerque. So I understand why the tendency is to think of those things as being industrial processes. However, there are ways of producing cannabis and cannabis products that aren't in line with traditional industrial processes, in line with the city's already existing cottage industry zoning regulations, light manufacturing regulations. That's what a lot of cannabis manufacturing is going to look like. You're going to see small commercial kitchens where, especially for the micro producers, the micro businesses, maybe a stove, maybe an oven, just a standard kind of commercial kitchen. So this idea that we would need a industrially zoned lot to make gummy bears is a ridiculous burden. Well, maybe that's a little strong word. It is an undue burden, especially on small businesses. And in line with the Elevate Las Cruces plan and the recommendations, you're looking for things like economic equity. You're looking for things like entrepreneurship. And if you're forcing us to get industrial land, which is limited, which is expensive, you're also creating this potential for out-of-state, out-of-city businesses to come in, swipe up that land, raise the prices, and that's going to push small producers out. That's going to limit entrepreneurship. And it's not in line with the rationale that you've used for bakeries, for candy manufacturers. So I hope that maybe there can be a consideration to add to the rules a light industrial process or a light industrial cannabis industry. Does the board have any questions for me?
Does anyone on the commission have any questions? I'm seeing none, but thank you.
Thank you.
I think that these comments are well taken. I think perhaps you should plan on attending a meeting with City Council when they take this matter up and present your same arguments.
I would, except I live in North Carolina.
Oh.
Actually, I graduated from MSU and hoping to come home through cannabis industry.
Yeah. Well, the minutes from tonight's meeting will go to City Council, so I'm sure that they will see your comments and perhaps someone will take notice of it and perhaps even think of doing something in respect to what you said. So thank you. All right, if there's no one else, perhaps now we could have a vote on the approval of the zoning code amendments for cannabis uses.
Board Member Thomas? Board Member Thomas?
I would like to have a discussion. I have a few questions.
So we never heard you ask one.
Trying to get...
I'm sorry, then go ahead.
So I want to ask Catherine, the two questions here were wanting that alcohol distances and cannabis distances should be the same, and that don't force small growers or distributors to have to buy commercial land. Both of those included in what we're voting on?
Commissioner Thomas, again, Catherine Harrison Rogers for the record. You were asking about wanting to make alcohol buffer distances as well as the distances for cannabis retailers the same. Is that correct? It's really hard to hear you, so I'm trying to interpret what was said.
Yes, what the gentleman said that what's being suggested for cannabis does not match with alcohol.
Commissioner Thomas, we're having a lot of difficulty in understanding what you're saying. I don't know if it's a connection you have with your telephone, but we can try that again, please.
The suggestion was that the cannabis distance should match the distance.
So again, Commissioner Thomas, this is Catherine. So you're recommending that we do away with the buffers, is that correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm asking if the gentleman's right, that the buffer that he doesn't like are in there.
So currently, the way it's written, there is a recommendation to have a 300-foot buffer from single-family residential zones. And then, of course, the 1,000-foot buffer between business locations. But again, we've had a lot of feedback on those. And so if you have a recommendation to remove those or modify those, that would be something that would need to come from you at this point in time.
My other question was the comment about please don't force them to have to buy commercial land. Is that how it's written?
Commissioner Thomas, members of the commission, the way we have the language is that for what we're calling producers, manufacturers, things of that nature, they would be limited to the industrial zones, with the exception of the micro businesses, which would be allowed in the agricultural zones, EE and REM, with a special use permit. Further, there's the ability for people to obtain an infill development process approval for eligible properties if they were to go through that to maybe allow those on those underutilized or vacant properties throughout the city.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So did I hear her ask for a motion?
No, I didn't ask for anything. I was only asking for clarification.
All right, thank you. All right, then, if there isn't anything else, now can we vote?
I've added my light on. I'd like to ask staff a question. Have you talked to other communities who have legalized medical and recreation sales of marijuana? And if you have they shared problems with you and successes? I go to Colorado quite a bit, and I know that they've had some problems. And I just wonder, has staff gone out to other communities to see how they've worked things out?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Muniz, members of the commission. Yes, staff, including city management, has been really involved in looking at other communities in terms of how they've handled this. One of the unique things about California and Colorado, for that matter, is that the state gave them an opt-in or an opt-out ability in terms of whether or not municipalities or counties wanted to consider recreational cannabis. The state of New Mexico has not given us that option. We are obligated to do it. And we've been speaking with the Municipal League, other jurisdictions within New Mexico to determine sort of the best methods by which to do that. But we are somewhat unique in terms of how it's being handled specifically here compared to some of the other states.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Catherine?
Yes.
Before we vote, I did have some concerns about the buffer as far as outdoor consumption site. I know the analogy was used of bars serving alcohol. You know, you can have bars beside each other and people could sit outside and consume alcohol. But I think with the use of cannabis outside, if you have 2 or 3 cannabis businesses beside each other where there's outdoor consumption, there is a density that could be created with secondhand smoke, which doesn't occur with alcohol consumption. That would be one of my concerns with eliminating any buffers between businesses for on-site or outdoor consumption.
Thank you. Members of the commission, Commissioner Smith. Yes, so one of the concerns that staff has and we've brought up is informed consent and being exposed to that secondhand smoke. And one of the recommendations, while not written into the language that you were provided in your packet, but that was discussed tonight, is that perhaps those consumption areas be limited to indoor only. It would have to be a motion made by this commission if you wish to move forward that way, or as you stated, continue to have those buffers between retailers.
Right now, I see a hand from the audience. Do you wish to speak? All right, then come forward.
My name is
Please state your name.
Randy Estrada.
I have to swear you in. You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth on the penalty of law?
Yes.
All right, sir, go ahead.
Okay. This is a comment on the idea of going about the informed consent. My question here is it because of a health concern or is it an intoxicant? How is it that we're metering this? Because we don't treat tobacco the same way, and that is another regulated substance that we allow in a consumption area that is covered by the bill for how it is allowed in those areas, whether they be casinos or already pre-approved tobacco consumption areas. I believe that that is another additional stigmatization of how something works. You are already informing the idea that I'm going into a non-clean air space with tobacco. Whether you accept that that is not a carcinogen is for you to decide. That is not the difference between cannabis and tobacco. It becomes the same issue. Are you going into smoke? Yes or no? That's really all I have to say is you decide that you go into a smoky area, you're exposing yourself to carcinogens and all kinds of just bad health effects in many different ways. So I just look at it that way. You already know you're walking into an area, it's already been approved. We should look to see how it is that we then meter those experiences for individuals. Do we put signage to let someone know? This is a fully open smoking area. Both cannabis and tobacco is allowed. So another consideration for the city to go about thinking about these kinds of things, because if we're taking away the stigma of it being a prohibited substance, something that we've had prohibition, then we should look at it as how it is we already use substances that are regulated. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else? Sir, in the back, do you ever want to speak? All right, I see your hand was up. I'm sorry. Commissioner Smith, are you willing to make a motion to that effect?
Yes, I make a motion that we vote on the cannabis zoning amendment.
Yeah, just a second. All right, thank you, I understand. All right, then I guess we are ready to vote on this amendment. So we have a vote to approve the zoning code amendments for cannabis uses. Can you call the roll?
Board Member Thomas?
I vote to approve based on presentation from staff and tonight's discussion.
Thank you. Board Member Smith?
I vote yes, that we approve with the condition that we maintain a buffer for outdoor consumption.
Board Member Bennett?
I vote yes to approve based on staff recommendation and commentary today.
Board Member Munoz?
I vote yes to approve the amendment.
Board Member Vega?
I vote yes based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Gordon?
I vote yes based on staff recommendations. So therefore we have a vote of 6-0. All right, then, we can move on. Does anybody from the commission have any comments for this evening? All right, are there any staff announcements? Catherine?
Chair Gordon, members of the the commission. Do want to remind everyone that we are getting close to having a copy for review of our code diagnostic. It's our first phase of Realize Las Cruces, our zoning code and land use code amendments. And the diagnostic is a report that will inform the way the draft is not only structured, but some of the bigger topics of concern. And it's an excellent tool, at least to inform you all what those big concerns are. We're proposing to have a joint City Council and Planning and Zoning Commission work session that will be held August 23rd. So please do reserve that. That would begin at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. It is a daytime meeting. So if you're unable to attend, of course, we will have the information for you, but by all means, we encourage you to attend that meeting. And I know I sent an email about it, and you'll be receiving invites if you haven't already. And we look forward to hearing your input and having you all review that code diagnostic and get well on our way towards actually drafting sections of the code.
All right, Catherine, if there's nothing else, do we have a motion to adjourn? It is now 7:50.
I make a motion to adjourn.
A second?
A second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.